feel like my thoughts and beliefs have been so far misconstrued from anything even close to what I believe. I only want peace and safety and security for all innocent people affected by this conflict.
Avery said, who does he consider innocent, right? Like, who do you consider innocent? I believe in peace. I don't think you believe in peace. I don't think you believe in peace. You love Israel. I don't think you believe in peace. He continues on for saying, I just reposted a beautiful picture of a young innocent girl whose life was taken by Hamas at a music festival. But one thing you won't post is all the hostages sent back to Palestinians, right? With tire tracks on them, with bullet holes on them, with zip ties on them. You won't post that, but you'll post a little girl, okay?
We all hope for the same things, that being those innocent people still being held hostage in Gaza to be returned to their families, and equally hope for an end to the loss of innocent life in Palestine. For 2024 online to see people be a little more understanding and compassionate and recognize that we're all human.
Man, you look white as hell. Noah, you can't even pull the Jewish card, Noah. This is how Noah trying to pull the Jewish card. Noah, you a white boy. You need Noah.
I have a dream. I saw the white boy walk in, and then like my natural human reaction and instinct was like, shooter, and everyone was looking at me crazy. Nobody was paying attention.
Put this man in any Midwestern city, I promise you he would blend in with the group of grade 7 to grade 12 boys. Put this guy in any Midwestern city, I promise you he would have no harm. Talking about all this, oh, what about the racial violence? Bro, you're a movie star on Stranger Things, bro. You're a movie star on Stranger Things, bro. The only violence being enacted is that haircut on a red carpet. How you on a red carpet with a bowl cut?
I have a dream.
Hi Pap Rock, it's nice to see you here. It's nice to see you back, Ducky. It's nice to see you too, Aesthetic. I haven't seen you in the chat Pictonal, but it's nice to see you today. I'm gonna remember that name for next time. Yeah, nice to see you too, Teal Deals. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think he was trying to silence me. Noah's real powers that he got from that one episode is just the power to silence marginalized voices, and he was just utilizing that shit with the $3 billion of research funding to telekinesis by Israel, like on my stream, and he was just quieting the shit out of me. But guess what, Noah? We coming at your cracker ass. We coming at you. I understand Stranger Things was promised 2,000 years ago to a lot of y'all. So this may be a tough conversation for some people. But more than anything, I feel like Stranger Things represents the disappointment of Gen V's advocacy, on top of a lot of other things. Now, let me not act like every viewer is like Netanyahu himself. You know what I'm saying? Not every viewer is Netanyahu himself. I have a dream. Right? But the ways in which we're taught revolt should play out doesn't factor in the satirical landscape of Gen Z, right? Like, pop culture will persist, and with it, the continuation of a normalcy contractually set at billions of dollars, right? Like that subscription and that streaming service that arose with our generation, right? Now goes on to fund Zionist entities, right? Which gives Zionists the utmost amount of comfortability. And my first question to a lot of people is, why can't these guys stop being crackers, dog?
I have a dream.
When will the cracker narrative stop being reaffirmed?
I have a dream.
When will crackers realize they just colonized?
I have a dream.
Why are there so much tags for colonizers? Why can't we just say cracker and just leave it at that?
I have a dream.
Why do we come up with tag after tag after tag after tag after tag to connotate aspects of genocide inside of a narrative?
I have a dream.
You know what I'm saying? Because no one ever asked the slaves what they wanted that period to be called.
I have a dream.
No one ever really takes their opinions or anything. But anyways, today we're talking about Noah Schnapp though. And if you don't know who this is, we gonna pull up a photo of him. This is him on the big screen. Big scene 3. This is really Noah Schnapp. Someone said I don't give a fuck about white people in Indiana. And it's so weird too, because Stranger Things is so Americana. You know what I mean? It's so like revisionist 70s, 80s Americana aesthetic to the point where it's like sickening that it erases marginalized voices in its narrative, right? They have this girl, Erica Sinclair, that's like this supposedly working class citizen, right? And then they wield her to kind of narrate capitalism, right? They don't don't talk about the sundown towns in Indiana. They don't talk about like the fact that Indiana had some of the biggest chapters of the KKK, and they were only dissolved like 20 years prior to Derry, Indiana, if you canonically look at it in the American timeline, right? Like, because this is in the time of the Cold War, this is the time in all these things, right? It's very weird to me. It's very weird to me. But anyway, this is Noah Schnapp. This is Noah Schnapp, you know what I'm saying? Little kid here. He looks like he could star in, like, you know, Richie Rich, but Richie Rich's like aborted twin. You know what I'm saying? He really rocking that bob though. His eyebrow strong. We love a strong eyebrow Bob King, right? Mr. Potato Head would be proud. Mr. Potato Head would look at this and say, I had a dream. I had a dream. This is Mr. Potato Head's influence right here. Whenever you look at Noah Schnapp, just know Mr. Potato Head did it first in Toy Story, right? Now on the concept of Noah Schnapp, right? This is a Zionist influencer, a cracker conspirator. And y'all know that Israel pays for promotion that we integrate and accept as a normalcy, right? For as much as we harbor on the parallels of Americana imagery that Indiana Derry presents in Stranger Things, we also have to realize that you know, Israel is a separate colonial entity, meaning their history of exploitation is differing, right? But the Palestinian narrative has been purposefully restricted in order for people like Noah to have a more mainstream appeal in everyday society, right? Think of someone like Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman. Like, y'all know who Gal Gadot is? Sorry, it's Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot. I'm sorry. Immediately, the do you love Israel stare. You know what I'm saying? This is Gal Gadot. But think of like Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman, right? She's literally propaganda, like being this Jewish woman that fights for the Nazis for Western freedom. Like, did you know that after they liberated the concentration camps, the West told like queer people to stay there because they were equally as homophobic? Like, imagine a scene where Gal Gadot like refuses a suffering Holocaust survivor bread. You know what I'm saying? Holy shit. That'd be canonically Israeli. That'd be the most Israeli thing she ever did. You know what I'm saying? But we know Israel is an active colonial entity. We've seen it on our phones, right? As in they're actively participating in the mass killing and exploitations of Palestinians. And we're given these celebrities like Gal Gadot and Noah Schnapp, but never presented with a Palestinian history, right? Instead, Hollywood spreads this soft power, right? Their message has been consistently spread, and on the other side, when you look at like Palestinians, their message has been consistently spread through the streets, right? Like through the Black Panther movement, through the civil rights movement, even now, after the events of October 7th and Israel's continued genocide, right? Like the student encampments, the protests, right? But I'm ranting and I'm getting ahead of myself, right? The concept is Noah Schnapp right now, right? And this is why he initially faced backlash. If y'all could see this over here. Someone said Zoran be friends and collabs with Zionists. I'm so tired, right? That's the reality of living Zionism also being in the structure of settler colonial normalcy. You know what I'm saying? It's another 8 billion for Israel, sadly. Mejai said, y'all know this kid was in a movie years ago about a child with both Palestinian and Israeli family members. They tried to make like a middle ground movie and his little ass was the star. Oh my God. You see what I mean? Like throughout this script, something that like kept popping in my mind was like the prevailing narrative and who's allowed to have a narrative, right? Like Noah is treated in this way and pedestaled in this way because of systemic factors that you know, degrade a Palestinian's everyday life. It's the reason why bombs are dropping on him right now. Well, Noah can be on camera, right? Parallel this to like America and parallel this to like Black stories, right? Marginalized stories. We know that like Black identity and Black people, Black communities come from a variety of places, right? We may have some immigrants that come from Nigeria, Ghana, X and X, and these immigrants may have been oppressed vigorously on their own lands, right? They come here and all of a sudden they're placed in the normative settler colonial identity of whiteness and they're just seen as Black, right? Well, they might be facing something entirely different over there. And this is how kind of social factors like settler colonial identity even rule the social normalcy or fabric of our societies, our respective societies, right? I said in a stream chat that I was disappointed that Zoran worked with Zionists, and I was told that was an anti-Semitic lie. Oh my God, oh God. I have a dream. Y'all can have optimism without sucking Zionist cock. Like it's you don't have to 69 Netanyahu in order to, you know, say, oh, I'm excited that my buses are gonna be a little cheaper. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, two things can exist at once, right, guys? I have a dream. Right, guys? Right, guys? But anyways, this is what Noah Schnapp initially was under fire for. A while ago, 2 years ago at this point, Noah Schnapp was at a store and ordered something with stickers on it saying Zionism is sexy and Hamas is ISIS, right? You see the stickers right there. And it's so weird to me how they celebrating through this. Like they literally just playing in your face. They celebrating with this tag in your face and everything. And you know that in the apology, he's gonna immediately switch and be like, oh my God. You know, I know the settler colonial playbook. I know he gonna switch up immediately after he's sitting there giddy as hell. Like it was his 16th birthday and he a white girl in LA. You know what I'm saying? Like, getting those stickers. You know what I'm saying? The IDF is closer to ISIS, right? And it's so funny because even ISIS, and that aspect of Arab supremacy is directly funneled by the US, right? The US gives these groups millions and millions and millions of dollars. Donald Trump was literally in the White House with somebody that killed a journalist and then turned into a politician. Don't you think that's a little weird that he was classified as a terrorist by his own people? But now all of a sudden when he's in a settler colonial inference where the US can use him to extract more resources from this country because he has a means of control that the USA funded, don't you think that's a little weird? I have a dream. Don't you think that's a little weird? Like these groups like Boko Haram and ISIS that are currently like reigning terror over Africa and a lot of the Middle East to northern African area, you know what I'm saying, in Sudan with like the RSF, are all literally funded by settler colonial entities. You could point them to Dubai, point them to America, point them to Canada, right? Like you could do this very easily. I have a dream. So it's so weird when settler colonials are like, oh, Hamas is ISIS. Bro, this is resistance. Bro, if you're getting curb stomped continuously, curb stomped, and more than curb stomped, actually, they put your head on the sidewalk and then they ride up on it with a tank. And then they ride up with a tank. And then they strap your body in zip ties. And this is how they're gonna send you back to your family when you die. But before they do that, they ride a tank over your head. And you have to watch that from 100 miles away, right? Imagine you have to watch that constantly. I would resist too. I would resist too. I have a dream. The hell? When someone don't put pickles on some of y'all burgers, y'all rebel. I have a dream. I don't know how you don't get the aspect of resistance. My supremacist cult is sexy and indigenous resistance is the real death cult. Oh my God, a normative sticker that is definitely not objective fascism, right? With how much time has passed, I didn't know Noah found genocide, ethnic cleansing, and anti-Arab racism arousing, right? Like, dude was giddy. Dude was giddy. Dude was hype. Dude was clapping like a seal. Like the But anyways, Bella Hadid gets fired for supporting ceasefire in Palestine, yet this little dipshit is only openly supporting genocide with no consequences. To be fair, Bella had not been fired from Dior, if that's not what you're referring to as fake news. But totally agree, Noah's a scumbag. Hope Stranger New Things totally collapses. Right? Right. Everybody talking about it in the comments, it being like this public thing. But what this chalks down to is how Zionists utilize settler colonial identity. Right? They create diaspora wars by pandering to a normalcy that they violently create, right? Like that normalcy of him clapping wherever he was to everyone around him you know, also being in on it was violently created. You know what I'm saying? Although he's smiling right now and it exists in a sort of peace, you know, although the bombs aren't dropping as heavily on Palestinians right now, and we exist in a sort of peace, and people in Israel can smile a bit more comfortably because there's a bit less criticism on them. You have to understand the continued genocide of Palestinians is still going on. You know what I'm saying? Someone said, I rewatched Wonder Woman recently, and when I got to that scene where she was yelling about how horrible people dying in war was, it's so ironic coming from that actress, right?
I have a dream.
Right? Miss Big Israel herself.
I have a dream.
Izzy is Gal Gadot, Netanyahu.
I have a
Nothing Netanyahu.
I have a dream.
Come on. But anyways, like I said earlier, Zionists utilize settler colonial identity, right? These narratives are tangible because of how they're treated as normal. Noah did this in broad daylight in a busy coffee shop and had people clapping for him. In this way, Zionist reality and Palestinian marginalization has been normalized for 100 years at this point, right? The reality of a marginalized exploitation being the public execution of Palestinians, caged in permittable areas, redefined as active war zones by the Zionist state of Israel, is a constant reality for the world. That's what I mean when I'm talking about a settler colonial narrative, right? And for those that can't imagine this, in the West, you could parallel that settler colonial narrative to the white history and how a majority of Black people live in the South because of slavery, right? And then we're systematically placed following emancipation in certain areas in the cities in the North, like 66th and 67th Street of Chicago, right? Big shabby apartment buildings, giving them the worst jobs possible and stoking a central fear around the narrative history by contorting Black stories and creating caricatures of Black identity, right? These same narratives reaffirm day-to-day life in America the same way they do in Israel, right? In the social aspects of their given societies, right? In Sudan, Black indigenous people in Darfur are violently killed and made refugees by the RSF, right? A paramilitary group made to kill as much dark-skinned indigenous African people as much as possible, right? But if those refugees moved to America and Canada for political amnesty, they would all of a sudden be placed in a narrative history of Black identity relating to Black Americans in North America, right? Meaning they'd assimilate to this settler colonial narrative, right? This is how settler colonial narratives create diasporas, right? No matter who comes over here, they got a category for you. You know what I'm saying? Everyone who is not white has probably had this, who's not white has probably had this divisive experience of culture, you know what I mean? But I really want to put it into perspective with how flawed everyday life is inside of this colonial narrative. It makes it hollow, right? It makes it hollow. And it doesn't make sense to the real stories of community, right? Colonial narrative is an empty lie that Zionists live in, that white settlers live in, that people live in, right? Chat, do y'all know what colonialism is? And name me one aspect of colonialism which still prevails to the modern day, because I really want to talk about the aspect of this false narrative that Zionists and settler colonials live in, right? Give me maybe a life story, a family tradition, or a sense of everyday experience you see that prevails through a colonial narrative, right? Shrimp Jesus said RSF dudes looking dark as hell too. What's up with them, right? It's heinous. It's heinous. It's violent. It's violent. But these are how social narratives are continued, right? And I'm going to start off with defining what I mean here with colonialism, right? Being the policy or practice of establishing control over another country. You see, but even this history is contorted by a common narrative, right? We don't often learn about the gist of global conflicts for a reason. And I'll give you a good example. Think of the Congo, right? A lot of the time, the Congo, Rwanda, and Sudanese history is disregarded as third world, right? I went to a Canadian school. So during school, we'd learn about our colonial history in Canada on Turtle Island, right? I learned that the colonists wiped out the bison in order to deter indigenous people from settling on their lands. I learned the economic realities and conditions of these settlers. I learned these settlers' names and faces. The glory that these settlers brought to their nations and colonies back home. You know what I'm saying? But the first time I learned about a history of emplacement being with marginalization, being my own history, was through the Rwanda and the Congo. Right. And of course, I'm not from any of these places, but as soon as they mention Africans, you know, they started staring at us. Right. You know, I was looking to the right. Like they said Congolese slavery. I was like, 9 white kids looking at me, all named Tyler and Ashley. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But anyways, the way we even learned about Rwanda in that way was distorted, right? They taught us that Rwandan citizens killed each other based on Hutu and Tutsi culture through a white narrative, right? Because these people were just so socially inept that this is the way they structured themselves. But you don't learn that this form of structure was actually placed on them by the Dutch, and it was done through very weird means. Like some people were deemed Tutsi because they were 2 inches taller, or some people were deemed Hutu because they were 2 inches more wide. You know what I mean? It was a very bad way of classifying Rwandan citizens, right? So that social corruption was ineptly placed through a colonial narrative, right? We learned that the Congolese genocide in the same way factored all these positive aspects for settler colonial attitudes, the same way we learned about indigenous genocide in the North. But we never learned about Congolese people as an oppressed society. Right? We didn't really have stories from the king of the Mani Congo who talked about his son that was taken by the Portuguese in the 1400s, right? We learned about the development of Europe and the boom of the industrial movement created by the Congo. We learned about white inventions like the rubber wheel and steel ships improving the science of navigation as a whole. However, we didn't learn that the Congo was in fact the beginning and the back of the industrial boom, right? And the reason why we even had an industrial revolution in the first place, right? Backed on the exploitations of millions of people made to be plantation workers by King Leopold, right? Hell, we didn't even learn that before King Leopold. We didn't even learn that before King Leopold, the Congo was destabilized by the Portuguese. We didn't learn that the Portuguese started the slave trade in the 1400s on those Congolese golden shores, exporting millions of local African people to plantations in the South and North Americas which would start countries like Brazil, Peru, and Argentina, which would become increasingly led into a white narrative by its citizens who started killing off and socially ostracizing its black and indigenous inhabitants while welcoming Nazis, right? In order to become a mostly white ethno-state, right? We didn't learn that Paul Kagame, Rwanda's current president who served after that genocide, which affected millions, is actually backed by Western forces in order to commit those same atrocities done by King Leopold to the Congolese in the modern day, right? Right? Paul Kagame is the new King Leopold to the Congolese people. This Rwandan president acting as a caveat to Western corporations, right? Using M23 militias to seize more and more property from Congolese people and accrue more and more gold for Rwanda. You know what I'm saying? Like, did you know the genocide of Rwanda was only 20 years ago? And since then, Rwanda has developed into a second world country. Like, kind of funny when you realize all that money comes from paramilitary groups sent into the Congo, funded by the US, right? And all this to say that the colonial narratives, right, of the West are entrenched, right? The black narratives of South America get erased. The African narratives get erased. The indigenous narratives get erased. While colonial narratives like Zionism form the basis of conception, right? Which is why it's a good thing to repeat and talk about your history as a marginalized person, but you already knew that, right? Right. Sophia said, I hate how smug some of my fellow Canadians are about being more progressive than Americans, as if they aren't racist, if not more than Americans. Right. It may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friend is fatal. Right. And then Japan decides to colonize Asia and we become victims again. LMAO, my whole country's recent history is this is how colonizer 1 gave, lost us colonizer 2, and so on. Right. Right. I'm saying. These are how settler colonial narratives are normalized. But anyways, Zionists will confuse you by saying like the Holocaust is the reason why they deserve Jewish land while disregarding who's allowed to be Jewish, right? Because it's certainly not those Palestinians under the rubble you're killing, right? Who were born on that land and have great grandfathers who have been there longer than you've been conceived as a memory. You know what I'm saying? There's still Palestinians alive that have been there since the start of Zionism. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not entirely that old, right? The same way there's still Sudanese people alive during the first Holocaust of Sudan, deemed a Holocaust, by the way, because there was so much black people killed in Sudan, right? My dad was alive for our independence. I was alive for our independence. I did the speech, right? But this is how a spectacle is contorted by settler colonial identities. And now to go to the second clip, I want to kind of get to Noah's apology too, and kind of how this aspect of liberal Zionism, or this aspect of let bygones be bygones, and smiling and trying to create middle ground with Zionists is inherently flawed. You know what I'm saying? This reads: Noah Schnapp breaks silence after Zionism is sexy video goes viral.
I feel like my thoughts and beliefs have been so far misconstrued from anything even close to what I believe. I only want peace and safety and security for all innocent people.
If you wanted peace and safety and innocence for all people, you wouldn't be a Zionist. You wouldn't wake up. You wouldn't want a 40-year-old man to point an AK at a child, at a 4-year-old child. You wouldn't want these. You wouldn't want your friends to play digital arcade with bombs on your communal members, right? Because Palestinians are your communal members, right? They from the same place. Damn, they on the same land. What do you mean? Who are you, like, right? Avery said, who does he consider innocent, right? Like, who do you consider innocent? I believe in peace. I don't think you believe in peace. I don't think you believe in peace. You love Israel. I don't think you believe in peace. It's laughable. It's
affected by this conflict. I've had many open discussions with friends from Palestinian background, and
how are you from there and you stutter that hard? Friends from Palestinian background. See how he can't say Palestine? See how he refuses to acknowledge Palestine? He's like Palestinian. He doesn't want to recognize it as a place. You can see the Zionism mind worm entered his brain and it malfunctioned him. He was like, nah, wait. The Mossad agent inside of him, the Killua brain spirit inside of him, is still activated. Like when he was about to say Palestine, Netanyahu like flashed in his mind for like a second, like the Undertaker. It was like doom, and then Netanyahu flashed in his mind, and then he was like, oh, Palestinians, I have a Palestinian friend. I have a black friend. I have a black friend.
I think those are very important conversations to have, and I've learned a lot. We all hope for the same things, that being those innocent people still being held hostage in Gaza to be returned to their families, and equally hope for an end to the loss of...
What Palestinian talking to you, bro? No, you gotta post proof. You gotta post DMs. What's DMs right now? Post DMs. No, post those DMs. No, post those DMs. No, post those DMs. No, post those DMs. I don't think after seeing the whole city block get leveled like that, I don't think anybody that's going over for food rations and getting shot at in the head by IDF soldiers, bro. I don't think nobody coming to you on some shit and being like, Noah Schnapp, you know, this is so nah.
I have a dream.
Someone said he's talking to DJ Khaled. Oh my God. DJ Khaled hit him like, Noah, don't worry. Stranger Things 5's the best. And he's like, thank you, DJ Khaled. I knew you would understand. You're the only Palestinian that gets me, DJ Khaled. We getting Arab money, DJ Khaled. Matter of fact, you're my friend. Then he starts stuttering. He starts stuttering because the Mossad agent entered his brain and he can't speak for them for too long. He can't be seen in public with them.
And I hope for 2024 online to see people be a little more understanding and compassionate and recognize that we're all human, regardless of our race, of our ethnicity, of our background, of our country of birth, of our even our sexuality, of any.
There's this really famous clip that I saw, right, where this black person is talking to this white person, right? And this white person is like, why can't we all be human, right? And this black person is like, when you tell me that, you're telling me, why can't we just be white? Why can't we just live in this aspect of settler colonial identity, right? And I'm feeling that too. Like when I see this conversation pop up from like Zionists saying, oh, I believe in peace for all. I believe in innocence for all. Oh, why can't we all just share the land? Them tried to share the land. There's very clearly someone bombing them off the land. You know what I'm saying? And this for anybody that's marginalized, I know y'all have all had this experience, whether it was like with a teacher or whether it was like with a friend or whether it was like with somebody in an authoritative power, right? Where they were just telling you to stop being so furious about your outrage. And you had to, you know, compress that hatred. Not that hatred, but compress that sort of sentiment that you feel because you understand the settler colonial normalcy will always be reaffirmed, right? And that's so disparaging here. It's so disparaging how Noah is utilizing that avenue to reaffirm his Zionism, right? The liberal route, the let me smile at you, shake your hand and say, oh, I just want peace. Well, back home, Israel is doing anything but peace. If you wanted peace, you would have been at a million protests, bro. Like if you wanted peace, you would have talked about the encampments at some point in time. If you wanted peace, you would do way like you are literally, you get millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like you have a platform with tens of millions of followers. Like you could skew this in another way. You know what I'm saying? Animated Sarah raid. Thank you so much, Animated Sarah, for the raid. If y'all don't know what we're doing, oh no, it's Ray K. It's Ray K's raid. Thank you so much, Ray K. If y'all know what we're doing here, we're talking about Zionism, Noah Schnapp's Zionism specifically, right? We're getting into the gist of, you know, settler colonial identity and how that correlates into narrative history and how Noah is kind of utilizing it in order to, you know, wedge sentiment, right? Animated Sarah said, I'm just a chatter with the raid. Thank you so much for the raid, Ray K. So please, somebody shout out Ray K in my chat because that's a good friend of the channel. That was a good friend of the channel, right? They're implicitly saying Palestinians are not human when they reach out to whiteness as humanity. To people that don't accept that lie, it's horrific. It's almost, it's almost supernatural, right? Right? It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. But anyways, what Noah Schnapp is doing here is actively contorting narrative, right? Actively contorting the narrative of Zionism. And I understand I didn't define Zionism here, but I know a lot of y'all read and a lot of y'all are leftists. A lot of y'all probably gone to tons of protests. So I probably don't need to tell y'all, oh, thank you so much, NP Sharky, for the donation. But I probably don't need to tell y'all about the gists of Zionism because you've probably been very involved in it, in and around you, whether that's your schools, whether that's your work protests or whatnot. But Zionism, or the gist of it, is Jewish nationalism, right? A modern political movement whose core beliefs are that all Jews constitute one nation, right? And that the only solution to anti-Semitism is the concentration of as many Jews as possible in Palestine, in Israel, and the establishment of a Jewish state there, right? This is very, but like I said, narrative history is very telling. And if you just look at that narrative, right, and you throw it into, you know, assimilation, right, you won't get the aspect of reality that can be comparatively, I guess, outlined to marginalization, right? Because Jewish people have gone through thousands of years of marginalization in Europe, right? But this is setting it up to say, you know, reparations are abroad, or reparations will be had. But what ends up happening is mostly a bunch of white people move into this area. But bunch of white people move in, right? And put a bunch of houses there, put a Starbucks there, put a mall there, right? All of a sudden, you got a new colonial entity, right? Ethno-states are bad no matter who it is, right? Right? And I also got a video for this around
Zionism is the ultimate form of anti-Semitism. Now let me explain to you why. So what Semitic is actually a linguistic category. It refers to people who speak a Semitic language. Now this might not make any sense because you're thinking the settlers who live in the land that they call Israel all speak Hebrew, and Hebrew is a Semitic language. But the people who originally arrived in the land of Palestine attempting to colonize it did not speak Hebrew. Hebrew is a revived Semitic language and was revived alongside the Zionist project itself. The last people to speak the Hebrew language as their mother tongue would have lived in the Levant region between the 2nd and 5th century CE, meaning that the language died out around 1,500 years ago, and you can blame the Romans almost exclusively for this. They were responsible for expelling and subjugating the Jewish population, sending many of them into Europe as slaves. Whilst they were in Europe, their language shifted, and one of the most common languages spoken by the Jewish community before the establishment of Israel was Yiddish. Yiddish is actually a language from a German language root. People who identify with the Jewish...
And I'm also seeing, I also see a whole bunch of those like, I guess, stolen identities utilized with the aspect of Zionism, right? Zionists will tear down a lot of things that are Palestinians, whether it's their houses, landmarks, basically signs that they were there on this land, right? Erase their history, right? And then recoup it into their narrative, right? String it along into their narrative, add it to their narrative. Things like the olive, things like hummus, things like everyday food items, you know, that come from Israel, like, what are they called? Kebabs. What are they called? Shawarmas. You know what I'm saying? Even the ways Israelis speak Arabic, it's just so out of pocket. Like, I know there's a lot of sentiment from the way Sudanese people speak Arabic, but like Israelis really sound like it sounds like Arabic was a concept that was promised to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how to describe, like, there's a little that they do. It's a little and it's an overemphasis. You know what I'm saying? Like my Arabic speakers out there, like, it just sounds weird. It sounds weird.
Religion are not a homogenous category. They extend over many different racial, cultural, and national groups. In fact,
yeah, right? Hamas. Their voices trying to colonize Arabic, right? It's like Shaitan themselves is having this battle, right? With like God, right? Trying to vocalize its own divinity, but it's being rejected by their uvula. Like their uvula is saying, I can't let you colonize me like that, right? It's like the ancestors pull on their uvula whenever they're about to speak Arabic just because they don't want to hear that shit. You know what I mean? They be like, it's weird. It's hella spit for no reason. It's just hella guzzling.
The last people to speak Hebrew as their mother tongue are all of our ancestors, because they existed 1,500 years ago. If you go far enough back in time in anybody's ancestry, you will find that we all have common relatives. So I've just explained to you why Zionism is manufactured Semitism, but I haven't explained to you why it's the most anti-Semitic ideology of all. And that is because the establishment of the State of Israel rested on the genocide of the native Semitic inhabitant population. Yes, that's right, Palestinians.
And I don't even gotta parallel that to America, right? Y'all know what island we on. We on Turtle Island, right? We threw up Treaty 6 and nothing else, right? I also want to say shout out to everybody in the chat, because we have 100 people on the Twitch and 100 people on YouTube. And this is the first time I've had so much people in the chat, so shout out to everybody. 300 people in a room with me. Oh my God. This is like the biggest party I've ever had in my life. My biggest birthday party that I've ever had. You know what I'm saying? We turned 25. You know what I'm saying? Happy birthday, Turb. Shout out to everybody for being here. Hearts, hearts, hearts. Oh my God.
Are Semitic because they speak Arabic, which is a Semitic language, and their ancestors have spoken Arabic for generations. So next time someone tries to tell you that being anti-Zionist is being anti-Semitic, just tell them this. And as always, I cannot wait for the West to fall.
And the West will fall, right? But this contortion of narrative history, right? I want everyone alive is very all lives matter sounding for a reason, right? When a caller tries to sympathize with you, and have level ground with you, they're trying to have you accept the reality of colonialism without repercussions, right? Like imagine if someone moved in, you started feeding them, and in turn they raped, pillaged, and killed your people for 100 years, right? Then when you're literally homeless, they start bombing you, right? Not only do they start bombing you, they leave out cans of food. And if you when you open them, they explode. You know what I'm saying? Like this is next level debauchery. This is next level debauchery. You know what I'm saying? This is the life of an everyday Palestinian person, right? And as someone that breathes the same air as Noah Schnapp, right? 100 kilometers away, right? Palestine is right next to Israel. Israel is an active settler colonial identity, right? So the devaluation of narrative history is what settler colonialism relies on, right? Telling you, oh, this land is your land, this land is my land, right? Like the devaluation of narrative history is the colonizers smiling in your face while shooting the kids behind them in order to solidify a narrative in which settler colonialism can exist with the least amount of resistance towards the state, right? In the West, this sort of polite appeal to normative public has since been coined as like the Southern strategy, right? But its implication differs. In Chicago, it might strip the autonomy of Black children, right? No longer are these young Black boys who grew up only 2 generations separated from slavery, a result of unfair systemic erasure set up to barricade Black people from broader society, right? Now they're YNs, right? No longer is Black Chicago's revolutionary history emphasized, right? No longer is Fred Hampton memorized as this broad figure who could collectively organize society, right? Now they put this little Black boy with the ski mask on the scene and tell you that Black people are the source of harm, right? No longer is the revolutionary history of Black people from the South needing to defend their own communities from racist lynch mobs by using their own guns realized, right? Now the Black community is demonized, right? Their formatory means of providing safety for themselves defamed and summarized as a cultural problem of poverty, right? And who's gonna eat that up? Miss Shelley, who runs your favorite music class, is gonna eat it up, right? Miss Hazel, maybe not Miss Rachel, but certainly a lot of those Miss Karen girls, a lot of those white people gonna eat it up, right? And this same aspect of Zionism exists in Israel in concepts of marginalization of Palestinian people, right? And mind you, different countries also established the normalcy of genocide differently, right? The UAE utilizing the overseas power vacuum created by the RSF, a division of the Sudanese government whose original purpose was just killing Black people, right? And then funding them, having them take over the gold-rich areas of Sudan, and then refurbishing that gold in Swedish banks, all while redirecting that wealth made from ethnic conflict to make the UAE more and more rich, but also benefiting other European countries, also benefiting other settler colonial identities, right? We also benefit from the settler colonialism of Israel, right? We sign contracts, we sign military contracts with AI companies, with defense companies, with tech companies, with Israel, right?
I have a dream.
However, the supposed justified narrative is ruled by whoever's history of conflict reaffirmed their atrocities, right? The UAE is allowed to continue funding this genocide and shake hands with Donald Trump in the White House. Americans are allowed to get away with genocide inflicted on Turtle Island. And Israel is allowed to get away with their 3rd Holocaust, right? We don't live in a reality where the marginalized have consistent voices, right? Being a fair means of presenting their own history. We live in a reality where we're utilized as political tools of instability whenever convenient. And this happens every day. And to really emphasize the aspect of settler colonial identity, I really had to get that story across, because we have to realize that this is a constant reality for those that are displaced from their indigenous lands. Whether that's the current land back movements of today, Black Power movements with Fred Hampton, or anti-ICE protests, right? Or Zionist apologetics like Noah over here, right? My next question to the chat is, what narratives reaffirm your life, right? What narratives reaffirm your family values and everyday experience, right? Like we go around every day partaking in social performance, right? Whether you like it or not. The social performance is, of course, in context of your school, work, or house's means of normalcy. However, the subjectives of our narratives, right, meaning our lives, more often than not, go under the radar in a personal sense. Right. Someone said we just painted a portrait showing the English and Cherokee sharing a meal and expected everyone to take it as a compliment, as the complete truth, and to think they left on their own or that we unified. Oh my God.
I have a dream.
They don't teach y'all about the millions of dollars they siphon to some of these coons.
I have a dream.
Oh my God. It's exactly like Paul Kagame in Rwanda. I'm telling you. Wizzy Talks a Lot said, Turb, have you heard about the settler native slave triad? I just read about that for the first time. Yeah, I have heard about that. I have a dream. If y'all don't know that, we had slavery instilled on indigenous people too, in Canada over here. And there were some badass people that resisted that shit. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Louis Riel too. Louis Riel being the GOAT of the prairies. Louis Riel being the GOAT. But we don't really learn about Louis Riel. Right. But anyways, for a lot of us, this generation is the first time anyone in our lineage has been emplaced in America's story. Right. I know it is for me. Right. Some of us might have 2 or 3 generations of familial ties here. Some of us are what they would call indigenous to Turtle Island. But overall, a lot of our personal stories are shut out in a narrative if we're not white settler colonials. You know what I'm saying? Gay Lennon said, I did not even know about this. Thank you so much for learning, I guess.
I have a dream.
Bro said learning, I guess. Oh my God, my Edmonton accent came out. Choco Mel said, yeah, Columbus took the indigenous people as slaves when he arrived. Right. Louis Riel was my history's teacher's faves. I'm so mad y'all had Louis Riel. When we learned about Louis Riel, as an antagonizing force to the state, right? We learned about him as a terrorist, essentially. And it sucked because only like when I went to college, when we revisited Louis Riel, I was like, no, wait, his actions like were very liberatory for Métis and indigenous people on Turtle Island. Like we actually did need to back Louis Riel. And Louis Riel was actually popular in his time, in his community, right? That's why he was so dangerous. More than just Louis Riel, it was also the group he encompassed, right? The same way it's not just Fred Hampton, it's the Black Panthers. The same way it's not just Huey P. Newton, it's the Black Panthers, not Assad Shakur, it's the Black Panthers. You know what I'm saying? I'm from New Orleans though, so I had no clue about this. I gotta learn about this person. He sounds incredible, right? But anyways, moving on. Zionists are opportunists, right? They jump at the chance to claim victimhood, like many did during October 7th, something Noah has been constantly under fire for, right? And I can understand being in place in this current narrative of settler colonial identity and, not understanding the Palestine and Israel situation at first. The key word is at first. But how much videos did you scroll past of dead people? Because like, I'm telling you, I couldn't even, the amount of videos I saw from Palestine while it was actively going on, like, I don't understand how anybody just missed that. You know what I'm saying? I don't understand how you see all of that and you still decide to be a liberal Zionist. But at the end of the day, we're heading into Noah's statements. Let me not keep ranting. I'm gonna be here for a million years. Noah Schnapp shares statement on Israel and Palestine. You either stand with Israel or you stand with terrorism. It shouldn't be a difficult choice. Shame on you, right? And then he posted this on his story. As a Jewish American, I am afraid. I'm afraid for my brothers and sisters in Israel who has been senselessly attacked by Hamas. I'm truly heartbroken to see the brutal murders of innocent children, women, and soldiers fighting to defend themselves. Oh my God. Did he say soldiers fighting to defend themselves? Did he say I'm truly heartbroken to see the brutal murders of innocent children, women, and soldiers fighting to defend themselves? Noah Schnapp, these are not innocent soldiers. Noah Schnapp, oh my God, somebody threw a bomb at him. Somebody threw a bomb at him. Somebody at him and then tell him let's be friends and then smile in his face and act like we're not settler colonialism. Oh my God, no way, no way.
I have a dream.
And the senseless attack by Hamas too, I want to draw attention to that. Remember when I said settler colonials will constantly work to unaffirm your identity and unaffirm your experience and your grievances? How long have Palestinians been oppressed leading up to that attack?
I have a dream.
I am not, you can't come to me talk about no condemn Hamas.
I have a dream.
The hell? I wish, dare I say it? They should have went harder.
I have a dream.
Dare I say it? They should have went harder.
I have a dream.
They didn't go hard enough. They didn't go hard enough. They didn't go hard enough. Like compared to the suffering that marginalized people face, it will never be one-to-one, right? With settler colonial entities, compared to the suffering and genocide and overall disenfranchisement and trauma that those children feel, that their narrative histories get erased from. You know what I'm saying? It will never, ever, ever add up. It will never add up. So you know what? October part 2, October 7th, part 2, it better go harder. It better go harder because we trying to up the score. We down. We trying to up the score. We trying to score. Damn. Choco Mel said, my cousin is indigenous, so from the moment I learned what we did to the indigenous people, I've been pissed so bad. My grandpa is obsessed with genetics and found that we're related to James Adar, who has been a wife that was Chickasaw. And ever since then, he's been obsessed with that. Someone told him that the gap in our family tree was likely Pocahontas, or by her true name, Makota. I'm so sorry, I'm going to butcher this, but with all respect, I'm going to try to pronounce it right. Makotaka and her first husband. He's legit trying to register us as indigenous now. Well, I'm happy that y'all are going through that process, but that aspect of narrative history and the fact that like we don't learn about indigenous stories like that, right? And instead they're just erased, right? And instead they're just continually pushed aside for a white narrative. Right? That's the evil part about this. That's the evil part about this. Oh my God. Someone said Turb's channel getting taken down. Am I lagging now? Oh my God. Are they sending the black trucks?
I have a dream.
Are they sending the black trucks? Because I said they should have gone harder. My fault. My fault, OG. But anyways, he goes on to say, I, like others, want peace for both Palestinians and Israelis. Let's stop the rhetoric and choosing sides. No, you kind of have to choose a side. When it comes to marginalization, you pick a side, you stay there.
I have a dream.
Draw a line in the sand, you gon' stay right there. Draw a line in the sand, you gon' stay right there. Pick a side, you gon' stay right there. Because what do you mean? What do you mean? You actively have to pick a side with certain things like marginalization, right? Right? The reason why slavery was abolished was because people actively decided that this practice will not happen anymore. Black people actively decided that and revolted again and again and again until it became a popular issue. You know what I'm saying? The reason why there's no white ethno-state of Rhodesia in South Africa and instead it's an apartheid state, it's because people consistently rebelled against that ethno-state until they were forced to dissolve, right? The reason why there's no white people in Haiti is because those people revolted against white people. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to choose a side when it comes to conversations like liberation, right? Because these things are a very real tragedy of everyday occurrence that gets emplaced on marginalized societies, right? And I know we may understand this as maybe the viewer somebody who's black or the viewer somebody who is from a marginalized identity. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we may understand this, but you don't actually truly understand it until the bombs are falling on you. And that's why a lot of these revolutionary groups are needed for the self-determination of people, right? Right? They kept arming the RSF and took away the Darfur's means of arming themselves. And that's why we have al-Fashir. And that's why we can see bodies from satellite images. If we don't want these massacres to happen, we have to support revolutionary groups. We have to pick a side. I'm so sorry, but you have to. When October 7th happens, I better see you accept that invite. I'm gonna send the invite with the application. You better click yes on that green button, bro. Me and you, we go together. Yeah, we go together, chat. Yeah, we go together, chat. Let me know. We go together, chat. We go together, chat. October 7th, part 2. But anyways, he continues on for saying, I just reposted a beautiful picture of a young innocent girl whose life was taken by Hamas at a music festival. But one thing you won't post is all the hostages sent back to Palestinians, right? With tire tracks on them, with bullet holes on them, with zip ties on them. You won't post that, but you'll post a little girl. Okay. Right? I was met with comments reading, no one cares, free Palestine. And she deserves that. And every Israeli terrorist deserves that, free Palestine. I know he's instigating rage baiting right now to sort of seem like he's being attacked and utilize the victim narrative. But oh my God, that's probably the least provocative thing I've heard anybody say on the internet. Like, no way. People call me the N-word with the ER, right? People call me slurs I didn't even know existed sometimes. Like this other person called me a night cricket the last time. And then I searched it up and I realized he called me a night cricket because black people, it's like slaves, would like sing jazz in the dark. Like would I, you know how evil people are on the internet? Bro, you're being treated with the most kitty gloves ever. They said no one cares, free Palestine. They didn't do anything. Bro, no way. No way. What the hell? They put the kitty gloves on you. Oh my God. They didn't even send the bodies back in body bags. Hamas sent any hostage killed in a coffin to be buried in a proper funeral. Oh my God. Cool said, I'm researching Noah. He's from Westchester County, Upper New York, and just started UPenn for business. It's sad that the most he's done outside of Stranger Things has come out as gay. And this is like, oh, somebody earlier said he made that liberal ass video about living with Palestinians as a Zionist. That was weird. That was weird. Give me a sec. I gotta plug my charger in. Okay, anyways, I'm back. Let's finish this. I'm outraged by the justification and celebration of the death of a young girl's life. Have people lost their minds? Stop. This is one example of many post rallies and petitions being signed attempting to justify the brutality against these innocent Israeli people. You don't have to be Jewish. How do you coin that one little thing and connect it to, wait, you just did the biggest jump ever, bro? Is this post written by like a kindergarten ELA student? Like, no way. Like, no way. How are you connecting like these little comments and everything to the post rallies and petitions for bombs being dropped? You know what I'm saying? You're obviously picking a side. You're saying that these post rallies and petitions and generalizing them, right? Saying many post rallies and petitions, right? Trying to stop these bombs, right? Protesting to stop these colonial entities from giving Israel money to kill Palestinians. You're saying, oh, look at this little innocent girl. Do you know how many hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are under rubble? You said ChatGPT wrote this. I think he said ChatGPT make this relatable to a liberal millennial audience, and then just like hit post on his story, because no way. Like his critical thinking skills, like the critical thinking skills of a Zionist are on par with a potato. You know what I'm saying? At least you can make electricity with a potato. You know what I'm saying? All a Zionist really good for is killing people. I've also noticed a silence in social media like I've never seen before. The same people who love to jump on fashionable causes like supporting Ukraine and combating climate justice have been chillingly quiet. Oh, I wonder, hey, when you're bombing Palestinian land and causing some of the worst CO2 emission rates in the world for your tiny little ass size of a country, of a country, let me put quotation marks around that, of a country. I have a dream. Of course there would be people loud about the fact that you're bombing these Palestinians and silent about Jewish suffering, I guess, if that's what you want to say. You just crying, you getting on here, you crying. You look white as hell. Noah, you can't even pull the Jewish card, Noah. This is how Noah look. Try to pull the Jewish card. Noah, you a white boy. You need Noah. I have a dream. Put this man in any Midwestern city. I promise you he would blend in with the group of grade 7 to grade 12 boys. Put this guy in any Midwestern city. I promise you he would have no harm. Talking about all this, oh, what about the racial violence? Bro, you're a movie star on Stranger Things, bro. You're a movie star in Stranger Things, bro. The only violence being enacted is that haircut on a red carpet.
I have a dream.
How you on a red carpet with a bowl cut, with an Edna cut,
I have a dream.
serving nothing but plaid?
I have a dream.
Oh my God, right? Someone said bringing up Ukraine like we shouldn't help them too. That's the Trump. Oh my God. Choco Mel, actually making blood libel true is disgustingly malicious. Sorry, but Noah's exactly what I thought Jewish people looked like, although I always thought of it like Christianity, how it could be anybody. That shit was always confused me and still does. Right. I'm gonna be honest. I am a Southern Sudanese person and I've only seen like black people my whole entire life. And the only Jewish person I saw was from Ethiopia and they were black. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be honest.
I have a dream.
If I seen this person as a little boy, all I would think was, oh, that's a white boy. That's a white boy. Like, what the hell?
I have a dream.
What the hell? Well, anyways, it continues. The Jewish people are seeing your silence and we won't forget about it. 40 babies were beheaded and burned alive in front of their parents by Hamas. This was refuted. You know what's so funny though? When actual babies actually get pulled up, right, by Palestinians and shown on the live stream, all of a sudden, all these points go out the window and the Zionists act like they weren't feeding us these lies a while ago. Right? Like they not the ones killing baby, right? Noah does look Mormon though. He does look Mormon. He looked like he from Utah. And his name is Blake. And he drives a Camaro. The Camaro is from 2007. It's a hand-me-down from his grandpa. Damn. He looked like he wore Lacoste Crocs to tennis practice. You know what I'm saying? This is a Utah boy. But anyways. Noah goes on to say, I hope we can agree that Hamas are a recognized terrorist organization. They don't represent the Palestinian people when they value murdering Israelis more than protecting their own. But they sure do when you talk about the attacks, right? All of a sudden you talk about October 7th and the fact that people are signing protests and doing going to protests, signing petitions and all this thing and rallying, right? Communally rallying. All of a sudden it's, oh, Hamas, you're rallying for Hamas. You're on Hamas's side. No, we're on the Palestinian people's side. You know what? I am on Hamas side, and I might be, but it's only because I'm a real one, and I want to see my people be free.
I have a dream.
But the aspect of this is so funny because the way he posts, he positions Palestinians as like, not the same as Hamas, and Hamas is this terrorist entity that is raining terror on Israel, right? But the fact that they don't recognize the IDF as this terrorist entity that actively encircles, entraps, kills, and bombs Palestinians, right? And puts it on the news and then rapes Palestinians and then breaks those rapist Palestinians out of jail. You know what I'm saying? And then allows those rapist Palestinians to be rapist Palestinians in public and then makes those rapist Palestinians aesthetic figures of Zionism, right? As celebrities on the TV, right?
I have a dream.
Right? It's like American Christian evangelicalism distilled in a nightmare soup. Yep, that is what Mormonism is. But anyways, keeps going. He says, you either stand with Israel or you stand with terrorism. It shouldn't be a difficult choice. No, you just lied to me. That sentence doesn't even make sense. Israel is terrorism, right? While you justify the murders and torture of our loved ones, we will hope and pray for safety, justice, liberation, and self-determination in Palestine. While you chant gas the Jews, who is chanting that? Oh my God. I hate the bubble that they can live in. Like, I know he's an actor, but I hate how he can live in that settler colonial narrative and just swim in it. Right? While you chant gas the Jews. Who is doing that talk? People are chanting for Hindra Jobs, say her name. For Hindra Jobs, say her name. The Palestinian girl that was shot by artillery tank fire and killed in a car while phoning for help. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so weird. It's so weird. But anyways, a reminder that we, the Jewish people, with our love for each other and others, are stronger than your hatred. We're strong, we're compassionate, we have prevailed before and will prevail again. Yada, 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 yada. co-opt identity some more, right? Co-opt identity some more, right? But anyways, these Zionists are opportunists. They jump at the chance to claim victimhood, right? Like many did during October 7th, right? And although Noah is the Caucasian punching bag of the day, I also kind of want to use him to speak about the broader topic of a prevailing Zionism, right? Basically, what it means when narratives are created around colonial identity, right? Who gets forgotten in this distortion, and how this colonial hegemony continues beyond its irrefutable crimes, right? Because after killing those hundreds of thousands of Palestinian people, Israel still continues, right? America still continues. Everybody still continues, right? Now, what do I mean by prevailing narratives, right? Well, we don't have to look no further than our own eyes. Like I said, Stranger Things itself is actually a reimagination of the 70s, 80s America. You know what I'm saying? And I need to start this off by talking about how weirdly Americana Stranger Things is, right? Like, do we have any former Stranger Things watchers here? Because firstly, I want to talk about how they strip the world building from America, right? They gut America. They take away the racism and give you the flashy, colorful 70s aesthetics, right? And like, am I right or am I tripping? Like, let me know, am I tripping? Let me know if I'm tripping, right? One thing about American history is in its actual narrative, it's jarring, right? I mean, I don't have to tell you this. The SNAP program was literally just cut because of AI billionaires needing more money to literally buy disposable drinking water from indigenous populations up north on Turtle Island, right? After vigorously fighting for the civility of Black citizens shot on camera by police officers, were forced to watch officers be pardoned by the killing of these people with families, communities, and relatives, right? I mean, ICE is outside right now in Gestapo form, right? We jarringly live the repercussions of settlers holding the most amount of power right now, right? Meaning to enjoy a show set in the 70s, 80s, where so much of this reality was so much more of an apparent conversation, right? These same conversations that permeate into systemic racism in an everyday society are purposely cast aside, right? Therefore, the narrative history of America is melded or reshaped for an audience in order to enjoy Stranger Things. But I'd argue that this restriction of narrative just doesn't paint the right picture, right?
This is rating anti-communism in U.S. media based
about the anti-communism in U.S. media of Stranger Things. I want to play this over here.
This is rating anti-communism in US media based on how persuasive I think it is. I'm starting with season 3 of Stranger Things because seasons 1, 2 aren't very anti-communist and season 4 is super anti-communist. Obviously in season 3 we have the Soviets are the enemy. The Americans used to be the enemy, now we're the Soviets. The Soviets have a secret underground military base that somehow smuggles in scientists and military generals regularly. Playing fast and loose with realism. Scene 1, a bunch of Soviet scientists die and then a Russian general kills another one because they're evil, I guess. This is scene before. This guy gets introduced who's like the crux of this. Look at him enjoying his smoothie, his capitalist smoothie. Look at him going to the fair, enjoying his capitalist fair. And then before he can see the bad parts of capitalism, you know, like the homelessness and the AIDS crisis, etc., they just murder him. They just kill him. We also have...
I love ginger people's hair. I just need to say that. I love ginger hair, chat. Shout out to the gingers, man. Shout out to the gingers doing it big for the red community. Shout out to the gingers. I want to appropriate y'all so bad, gingers. Shout out to the gingers, man. But anyways, as I was saying, someone said they just hopped in here. It's their first time on live. Thank y'all for being here. But anyways, like I was saying, there's a very real narrative reality of emplacement set in colonial identity with Stranger Things. And then there's a good article about it here too, called Stranger Things, Imperial Nostalgia and the Red Scare, right? The premise of the Netflix original series Stranger Things begins simply enough. A boy goes missing near a top secret government laboratory. An adventure ensues as the teenage protagonists go on the hunt for answers. The storyline is set in 1980s American Midwest, tells the tale of the greatest evil the working class has to face during an era of Reaganomics, Cold War imperialism, and rampant racism are Soviet Russians. Yet, Challenge recognizes that this storyline is a distorted version of history, far from the truth. This current period, where US imperialism is in the decline and world war with China and Russia looms, a nostalgic look when the US empire still ranks supreme is helpful to the ruling class. The liberal ruling class media loves to use anti-communism as a tool to build US nationalism and anti-Russian ideas that can be used for war. Right? And then they have the Russian villain trope, a dangerous nostalgia for 1980s America. Stranger Things reflects a time when racist free markets was at its peak. A free market economic system can be both impossibly damaging to small businesses and a preferable alternative to the authoritarian communism of the 1980s enemies. Written by The Atlantic in 1970, right? This damage is evident by signs around town that read, "Save downtown, no to mall." One character pitches a story about the displacement of small stores to the executives of their local newspapers, but the all-male newsroom mocks her. Beneath the center of impulse shopping, over-consuming, and wage slavery, the scene poses a greater threat, the Russian conspiracy. The danger of this message is that it misleads people to believe that Russia is exclusively linked with communism and communism with terrorism, right? Class betrayals, they use LGBTQ people, they Erica spying on Russians, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is just Cold War nostalgia through and through. I hope you all have a good night. The people that are leaving, hearts. But anyways, aside from that, I wasn't the biggest fan of Stranger Things, but when I was in high school, it had its first season. Right? At that time, Netflix was a new streaming platform, like starting to generate more and more views. Streaming in general was low-key new. This was also the start of the big boom of like anime streaming and all that, like Crunchyroll and all that. But I was watching the hits of To All the Boys I Loved Before, Riverdale, On My Block, underrated gems like The Get Down and all that, you know what I'm saying? Stranger Things was a part of this initial string of success that like Netflix streaming had in connection to a Gen Z audience. But what separated it from others was its Midwest aesthetics, right? Stranger Things' Midwest aesthetic appealed to a broad audience, considering the highest population of white people exist in the Midwest. That same contortion of narrative is just a classical route to take with media, right? Things like square dancing, cowboy hats, ranching, and farming are middle white class iconography coded into everyday life as white identity, right? We can see why an area as ambiguous as Hawkins, Indiana would be so popular to this narrative too, right? I mean, even the NBA ran with the Midwest narrative for a while. Like, look at their signifiers of whiteness. A Larry Bird being this all-encompassing self-insert for low-class white boys competing against black men, right? He was from Indiana, right? And now Caitlin Clark on an Indiana team, nonetheless, right? Like, this shit, parallels happen, right? We even see people like Taylor Swift, who was raised in relative wealth and luxury, cosplaying as a cowboy from time to time and endorsing in that Midwest aesthetic. That Midwest aesthetic is open for a lot of white people to come back to when it comes to a ubiquitous identity, right? And this Midwest narrative has a lot of popular power in terms of marketability for that reason. But what that does is when you introduce it to a public youth, right, that is fresh off the cuff of streaming and being introduced to these new platforms, right, that grew up square dancing in schools in the narrative that white identity is being a cowboy and relatively growing up in small towns, right? Although it's laughable because there's legit a million people in some of these cities named small town, right? There comes a restructuring, right? A new understanding of an American narrative. All of a sudden, these kids are enticed by that spectacle, and this same narrative reality is carried on to the youth, and that benefits settler colonial ideals of that time in a sense of normalcy, right? That reaffirms it, right? Oh wow, the 80s truck stops were so cool. Oh wow, black and white people get along. Erica Sinclair is running a shop. Oh wow, America used to be bright and beautiful, right? And I think it's important to note that beyond the visual aesthetics, Stranger Things is known to make geopolitical comments on the atmosphere of social realities met in that time frame, right? But they're always contorted, right? Always contorted, right? Like we said here, Who's the Monster, with the illusion of you know, Soviet spies infiltrating and breaking up America from a class solidarity standpoint, and not corporations exploiting their citizens, right? They're not accounting for the countless protests and class action revolutionary movements that happened, right? They're very clearly steering away from that and being like, oh, you know what? Let's focus on small town, cuddly life with these kids and all that, right? So what was actually the narrative history of Derry, Indiana in this time is my next question, right? What was actually happening in Indiana? Like, what was, if Indiana is this contorted settler colonial narrative, what was actually happening in small town Indiana? You know what I'm saying? Like in a small town, were the KKK, were the boys in the hoods active? Were lynchings active? Were sundown towns available? You know what I'm saying? Choco Mel said, but guys, listen, what if capitalists were the good guys? Oh my God, right? Well, the show will give you its token black moments like Erica Sinclair having a good line here and there, but it'll never tell you about the narrative reality of Indiana that persisted through the 70s, right? Although Erica is known to be this class worker that reaffirms the aspect of the gap that racism creates, right, in society because of opportunity, right? Erica Sinclair gets this opportunity as a store worker. So obviously Indiana isn't racist, but a lot of Indiana had your opportunity cut off at 9 p.m.
I have a dream.
A lot of Indiana had your opportunity cut off via shotgun by 9 p.m., right? And it's this concept called the sundown town. It's this concept called the sundown town. And I need to kind of throw y'all into this. I want to end off with talking about sundown towns before we end the live and get into the diss track today.
Setting into the twilight of the evening, the sun casting a long shadow on clean streets, well-manicured lawns, and families strolling home. Yet beneath this tranquil facade lies a dark, unwritten rule that emerges at nightfall, a visible clock counting down on anyone within the city limits who isn't white. This is the life of a sundown town, a haunting relic from America's not so distant past. It still has ramifications today. And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemichistory.com. But without further ado, let's get started. The term sundown town refers to communities in the United States that historically practice a form of racial segregation by systematically excluding non-whites from residing within their town after dark.
Okay, let's do a quick experiment. Indiana sundown towns, right? Look at how much sundown towns they had. Look at how much sundown towns Illinois had. Bro, look at that shit. Dot, 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 dot.
I have a dream.
Bro, this looks like a grade 7 art project. No way.
I have a dream.
Shit was pew, 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 pew at every intersection. No way. So Derry, right? Derry, that Stranger Things is set in, is from Indiana, right? And Indiana, or at least small town Indiana, a lot of these small towns were sundown towns. Look at those dots. A lot of these small towns were sundown towns. So how the hell do you hop on saying everything you say without talking about that racial reality of living in a place where there's sundown towns? Like, what the hell? Oh my God. Guys, look at this. This looks like a grade 5, this looks like a grade 5 kid's forehead during puberty, bro. Like, this look like, oh my God, that's a smallpox of sundown towns. Oh my God. Damn. You could play connect the dots with that shit for a good 2 minutes. No way. And I want to say, all those dots are places where people lived, where there were families, right? Multiple families, right? Where Black people feared leaving their houses past a certain time, right? Where Blackness was psychoanalytically policed in a narrative of settler colonial identity, right? So how are you in a show that is in a place like Indiana with such a rich, with such a prolonged history of racial segregation, and you're still blatantly like negligent to institutional suffering. Like, what the hell? What is Zionism doing in Indiana? Well, Zionism was already in Indiana. That's the answer. But anyways, let's continue.
These communities had rules, both written and unwritten, to keep non-white people, especially African Americans, out of their town limits. These towns existed mainly through the 1800s through the early 1900s, but they weren't just a southern problem. They spread all across the entire country. Within these towns, you might find signs that state, "Don't let the sun go down on you here."
Yeah, and I also want to emphasize that a lot of people think sundown towns was only like a like the South of America thing, like, you know what I mean, like Texas, and Florida, Georgia, places like that. But these sundown towns were very present in the North. The North actually had more sundown towns than the South, actually. Fun fact for y'all.
Warning non-white people to leave before nightfall. If they didn't, they faced threats of violence and even the possibility of being lynched. Local officials, business owners, and residents in these towns worked together to keep the communities almost entirely white. Sometimes there were actual laws that said African Americans or other minorities couldn't buy or rent homes within the area. Even when there weren't laws, white residents would often use threats of violence to enforce this racial divide.
And this settler colonial identity sounds a lot like Zionism, doesn't it? It sounds a lot like getting Palestinians out of their land, using their fertile land for your agricultural means, for your industrial means. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the same practice. How colonizers capitalistically exploit the marginalized. You know what I'm saying? So even, I want to say, even after, you know, protests are done, while protests are kind of leaving the public sphere right now, we're seeing less of them, and we're seeing less people talk about Palestine. Y'all have to remember that we live in an active narrative of settler colonial identity, right? And it's up for us to actively deflect these narratives on a day-to-day level, whether that's through our actions, whether that's through boycotting Stranger Things, whether that's through boycotting things on the BDS list, whether that's organizing with your friends, whether that's showing up for town halls, whether that's creating your own speeches or letters for MPs and parliament members, right? Because this struggle has been constant, right? This same struggle was shared with the Black generation a decade ago with the Black Panthers, right? With Malcolm X, syncing up with a whole bunch of Palestinian activists, right? But you're not taught this narrative history. You're not taught that you walk side by side with marginalized people all over the world, right? We're not taught that our history as people that are oppressed by capitalism should be acknowledged and maintained in a public narrative. Instead, we're constantly fed settler colonial ideals, I need to say, right? The disease of whiteness and colonialism is always frighteningly unchanged. I'm still horrified at the fact that not a lot of people are aware of sundown towns. My best friend is Blasian, and even she didn't know about them. We're shocked to learn about them. There's even sundown towns in effect to this day, actually. When I was in Vancouver, somebody gave me this book, but my friend was given this book specifically about sundown towns that you shouldn't travel to if you're going on a road trip down to the south. And I know people actually made this and handed them out to Black people as a communal means of survivability all the way back when it was way more enforced city to city. But now, even now, they're still giving away these books. I'm telling you that it exists. It exists. It exists, right? And it exists for a lot of indigenous people too. Like, a lot of indigenous people will tell you if you go to certain areas, the white people are not the nicest to you. And sadly, we know this by experience. We know this by narrative experience because we have family members killed mysteriously, or we have people go missing, or people that end up in landfills, things like that. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, Noah Schnapp, do I have a riddle for you? Do I have a rhyme for you? Because we're gonna end this shit off. We're gonna end this stream off.
Okay, chat. Chat, I need everyone to throw up the Sudanese flag. I need everyone to throw up the Sudanese flag right now. I need everyone to throw up the Palestinian flag right now. Because we throwing a diss track at Noah. We throwing a diss track at Israel. Fuck Israel. If you from Israel, we might cut you. I don't give a fuck about you. You just might get touched, you. Noah walking around acting like a fool. Noah acting around, but this K finna make him drool. Finna pull out the tool. That's a muscatool. You thought October 7th was bad? I'ma give you the worst memory that you ever had. You should be glad. I'm finna make this white boy mad. Pull this cracker. I'm finna make this white boy mad. Crack the AK like Columbine did some bad. Hey, Noah. If you come around me, you'll be toast. Yeah, it's term. We do the most. Shout out Hamas. They the best. They the goats. They the goats. October 7th wasn't no joke. Wait for part 2. We just gon' talk. We gon' talk on Netanyahu. Netanyahu pass talk on Netanyahu. Netanyahu turn on Netanyahu. Netanyahu pass turn on Netanyahu. Shout out Hamas. We ride, then end it. Kalas. We going too fast. I'm shooting at crackers. I think they the massa. You imposter. I never liked Mario. I never liked pasta. You imposter. I never liked Mario. I never liked pasta. I gotta say shout out to everybody in the live. I'm gonna throw my Discord in here for anybody that wants to join the server and whatnot. I'm gonna throw my Discord in here for people that want to join the server. Just know that joining the server helps incredibly, following the Twitch helps incredibly, following the YouTube helps incredibly. Thank you so much for sitting here. I'm gonna send hearts to y'all. This channel might get sniped, it might get sniped, or there might be a VOD up tomorrow. I don't know, maybe tune around. Maybe tune around, maybe follow, and you know, stick with the journey. It's so nice to have people here. But